This is The Resilient Life, where we believe that every human will struggle in this life. Our challenge is to struggle well. I'm Ryan Manion. I lost my brother to war, my mom to cancer, and I'm the daughter of a retired Marine. I'm also a wife, mom, author, and president of one of the nation's leading veteran service organizations. Join me and some incredible guests as we explore the value of struggling well through life's inevitable challenges. Welcome to another episode of the Resilient Life podcast. Today, I have the head coach of Maryland Men's Lacrosse, John Tillman. And if you listen to this program a lot, you hear me talk about, that I played lacrosse in college, that my daughter and my kids are lacrosse players. So this is super exciting, especially coming off the heels of a 2022 national championship title, calling Maryland one of the greatest teams ever. So such an honor to have you on today, John. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. The honor is truly mine.
So let's talk a little bit, for those that follow lacrosse and for those that don't, we just finished up the national championship. And Maryland took the title Memorial Day weekend. It was incredible. The women's UNC took the title for the women. But, up pops, not only did Maryland win, but the first undefeated team since 2006 against Virginia. So huge feat. And when you think about that, there has to be something that makes this team unique and different. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about what made this team so special.
Yeah, geez, there are a lot of things for sure. And it's, you're so busy. We knew we got through the regular season undefeated, and we truly never talk about, hey, let's go undefeated. We really try to take it day by day, week by week. And to me, just breaking things down that simply, especially with young people, I think it just makes it easier. Just let's have a good practice today, or let's have a good lift, let's have a good drill. And just, if you're so focused on just being in the moment and doing the best you can at that point in time, you feel like there's an old book by Bill Walsh, The Score Takes Care of Itself. And really, we were just, everybody was so focused this year in so many ways. We got through the regular season and we knew we were undefeated. It was hard to escape that. And then the last 6 games just seemed to fly by. You had a conference tournament and then the NCAA tournament, and you're really kind of in this next, what's next mode. So when people said like you were 18-0, it kind of crept up truly that we actually got to 18. And then just in terms of, relative to other teams historically, we hadn't really thought about, comparing ourselves, and it's come up 1,000 times since then. But to think that, wow, people are bringing up this team with some of the great teams of all time, it's certainly humbling. It just seems so foreign because we had never aspired to be really anything but the best version of ourselves. And it sounds like a cliche, but that's really all you can be. And when people have asked about comparisons, you kind of just laugh because that's probably what you do at the coffee shop or at the corner pub, or at the campfire. And you're usually pretty passionate because you have some sort of allegiance, and it makes for great banter and fun, and the game's different now than it was. So I don't think you'll ever be able to prove it. And if you're really passionate about maybe that 2006 Virginia team or, some of those great Syracuse teams, you're basically you're gonna stay loyal and you're not budging. And I'm sure our Maryland fans would feel the same way. But I do think, things that really stick out for this team. I just think the selflessness of this group and the resiliency, and obviously that becomes kind of relative to the podcast, but this group was so unselfish. Our top guys, especially, we had a lot of guys return from last year. Last year's team, we lost a 1-goal game in the national championship, and it was a heartbreaking year in that regard, but an amazing year in so many ways. But then again, with like everybody else in America, the sacrifices the kids made during COVID, just the emotion that came after the season and losing that game. It hurts anytime you lose, and any coach will tell you that, especially at the end of the year, knowing that your journey's over and it's the last game with the players, and you have to say goodbye. But with COVID, just the testing 8 times a week, not seeing parents at tailgates to get a hug, literally like isolating yourself in your rooms because we were just so worried about COVID spreading, especially with young people. Guys didn't get a chance to celebrate on the weekend. They didn't get a chance to go home. They sat in their room all day for classes. They came to practice. You ran into the locker room at times and just grabbed your stuff and left because we couldn't have everybody in there. And then after practice, you put your stuff back in groups. So we didn't have too many in there. And then you went right back to your apartment or house. So you were so isolated. We didn't have that human connection. So when it ended, to come up short, I think was devastating. But I think that drove this group. We talked about coming back. Hey, now all we can do is control what we can control. But there was a lot of drive for this team based on the disappointment of last year, which you hope, right? That's what they learned through athletics. One of the many things is it doesn't always go your way. Okay, well, how can you maybe turn the negative into a positive? What can you control? And what can you learn from the disappointment or the adversity that can help you going forward? And to me, we're teachers. Our classroom is the lacrosse field and the locker room and maybe the meeting room, but we're teachers and we know bigger challenges are ahead. And we're trying to get them ready for what they're going to face down the road based on what we're doing collectively right now.
Yeah, and I love that. We're teachers and may not be in the classroom, but it's so true. And I talk a lot about, my all 3 of my kids play lacrosse, but my middle child, she plays soccer and she loves soccer. We know soccer is a super competitive sport when it gets to the high school and collegiate level. She's been playing since kindergarten. She's going into 8th grade now. And I always talk about, the beauty of what she's learning on her soccer team is the fundamentals she's learning from her coach about life. And I don't care if she ever steps on a soccer field in college, what she is learning from her coach right now about life in general. It's so powerful. We'll keep supporting her to play as long as it's available to her. And you think about like this, you talk about adversity, and I love that. And I watch this idea that you're going to get another game, right? So for most of those kids, I know there were obviously seniors that graduated, but for most of those kids, they got that next game, right? They got that chance to come back and redeem themselves. And I think you can learn so much and probably way more from that loss than they learned from that win this year. I mean, losing by 1 goal, swallowing that and walking off the field with that's a big life lesson. And the obviously the excitement that they had this year is incredible, but they probably learned so much more from that game last year.
And that's the hard part is, you know what the kids put in, and then, you get to that last game and, you realize one team's going to be, really happy and celebrating. And, one team's going to be devastated. Having done this for a while, you do realize, the journey is what it's all about, and the journey of life. But what I love about, athletics and being in college is that each year we go on a journey. And some people look at it as a mission. And certainly you have goals, but I worry about titling it a mission, because if you have a mission, either you achieve the mission or you fail the mission. And I think with, being a teacher and being in college, these are some of the most important and most transformative years of your life. And I remember being a freshman, a wide-eyed freshman, and a small town guy. And those 4 years for me, I learned so much about everything. And that's where I think it's the beauty of the journey, is seeing that freshmen come in kind of nervous, very unsure of themselves. And then by the time they get to be a senior, you hate to see them leave, but they're ready.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, you talk about your kids that they graduate high school and they're off to college, and sure, there's some sadness that they're going to college, but this is their life. This is where they are. They need to leave to grow. And I think it's such a healthy place to have adversity. And I think that is the challenging thing for parents is, you want your sons and daughters to be happy. But it would be, it's not realistic to think that you can take away all the obstacles. And if they always get straight A's and they're always the best player and they're always the most popular person, and everything's going great, that's awesome because they'll be happy. But deep down inside, you have to realize that down the road, there's some stuff that's going to happen that's not going to be great. And have they learned those coping skills? Do they know how to manage disappointment? And that's eventually happening to all of us. And so I think it's super healthy to be in a college environment where you have, for us 47 teammates, a coaching staff, a support staff, a sports psychologist, an academic advisor, coaches, everybody that's here to help you. So yeah, in your world, the bad grade, didn't have a good practice, you're injured, it's not going well with your girlfriend. That is huge at that point in your life. And that is devastating at times. Yet when you realize down the road, there's going to be bigger challenges, how do you get through that? Are you doing it in a healthy way? Are communicating? Are you, vocalizing? And I think that's one of the challenging things for young men is we keep everything inside, right? And it's not healthy. And it's a very difficult world to grow up in right now, and especially with social media. So, getting those things off your chest, realizing it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to not be okay. And I think what a great environment to do that, especially in college with so many people there to help you.
Yeah. No, and I love that. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about, coaching today and what that looks like, versus when you were coaching 10 years ago. I mean, there's so many more variables, right? And so, what are the biggest issues you're seeing? And are they trickling in, like the issues facing youth, are they trickling onto the field, and how do you, as a coach, prioritize? I was talking to a coach yesterday, a lacrosse coach yesterday, high school lacrosse coach, and she said that she was dealing with so many issues with her players, in a lot of mental health issues that she was dealing with, that she at one point during the season said, this, forget the fundamentals of lacrosse, forget what we're doing. Like, I need to make sure that these kids are okay. And it got that serious. And so what are you seeing at the level that you're at? And what do you think the biggest challenge is today?
Boy, I think back and I kind of joke with our guys that I grew up in the Stone Age and we didn't have electricity back then. We had leather helmets, things like that, but it just seemed so simple back then. I think we had a lot of challenges as well, but I just remember, hey, if this is what the coach said to do, that's what you did. There weren't a lot of options in a small town. You played sports because it provided, something to do. It provided the friendships. You did learn a lot about life. You didn't understand that at the time. But it was a very kind of simple world. You were very bubbled into your little town, and that was pretty much your world. To think that now with social media, and you think about especially these kids that are very good players, high school players, they're going to these national tournaments and they are little celebrities. They're recognized players. There are guys that, are freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, and they're being ranked. They're 15, 16 years old. And so now all of a sudden, nationally, people in California know who they are. With social media, I think there's a lot of great things about social media. I think depends on how you use it. But I think there are a lot of good things, but there's a lot of danger there, especially with young people that, a lot of their identity becomes about the likes, how many followers, what people say. Do you do a good job of when you're not on there, or when you're done playing, realizing that you're going to get critiqued. You're an athlete, you're on the stage, and not everybody wants to support you. So somebody that you don't know, who's never met you, who you might not even know because of, what their Twitter name or whatever it might be, they may crush you. They may be critical of you, just because you missed a shot or you did not run fast enough. And to be young, a lot of times we don't have those coping skills. So to realize that people all over the country and all over the world are critiquing you, it to me is just such a foreign concept, because of the little bubble that I grew up in. So trying to understand that, and realize it's the kids are so much more aware and informed of the world now. And it is a crazy, unpredictable world that we're growing up in. And so trying to stay in tune with them, I think, is really important. And young males don't do a great job of expressing themselves. I know I didn't. And I am not great at that sometimes, like I have to, make sure that I do a good job of doing my best to try to connect with them. But generationally, we are, there's a big difference there. So getting guys to communicate is a challenge, but I think it's really important. And trying to get guys to express themselves and getting them in a spot where, hey, it's okay. You can shut the door and whatever we talk about stays between you and us. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to help you. But it's a lot harder right now. So I think the sports psychologists, I think most programs have those now. Those are really important. It does give, the young men and women somebody to go to that's not a coach or player or a parent, that maybe they can just talk to them and it's a safe space. I think the older players are recognizing that it's really important to look out for those younger players, because they're probably going through a lot of those freshman challenges that they went through. And that doesn't get talked about a lot. And we try to talk to about it with our freshmen. They're coming from a spot where they're probably one of the most popular, one of the brightest, and one of the most successful athletes in their school. And there's a lot of confidence and there's a lot of comfort there. And when you go to college, I don't care where you go, what sport you play, what college you go to, all that goes away. You're new, all that comfort's gone, and all of a sudden you start all over again. That is sometimes a huge adjustment. So making sure that you're trying to stay in line with them and remind them this is part of it. Like, it's not going to feel great. You're going to struggle, and it's not something that maybe you've done before. Hang in there. Everybody's been through it. And then remind the parents, hey, this is going to happen. Biggest thing you could do is keep supporting them. But anytime there's a problem, if it's academics, hey, did you go see your academic advisor? Let's go talk to them. Hey, problem with lacrosse. Have you talked to the older players and gotten feedback and advice? Same thing with the coaches. Things socially, same thing. Have you talked to the older players? It is a big adjustment, but it's such a healthy thing to kind of have to restart and start all over again and work from the bottom up, because they're going to do that 4 years later.
Yeah, they're low man on the totem pole coming in. Sure, 100%. So let's talk about the tie-in. For me, you're the head coach of Maryland men's lacrosse, but I know you as a coach at the Naval Academy, coaching Brendan Looney, along with his brothers Billy and Steve. And I'd love for you to talk to us a little bit, because not only did you coach at Navy, but you helped bring Navy to the national championship game in 2004. I'll never forget that. My parents sat next, and Travis sat with the Loonies at that game. And it was after graduation. I think they had already graduated at that point. It was a couple days later, and Navy did not win. But I have some of my favorite pictures ever of Travis and Brendan and Steve and Billy from after that game that night, when, they really let loose and embraced the loss. I'll put it that way. But let's talk about that idea. There's certainly a difference. You're coaching at Maryland, but you were coaching midshipmen, and talk to us a little bit about, did your coaching style change, and what does it look like, and what did you see the differences in when you were coaching the midshipmen versus what you're doing now over at Maryland?
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I, didn't, express my gratitude to Coach Mead, who was our coach, who gave me the opportunity to coach at the Naval Academy. And I remember back in 1995, I was coaching at Ithaca College, and there were some opportunities, there were some coaching changes, and that's kind of what happens. The year ends, and as a young coach, I was 4 years out of college, and there were some openings, and luckily, there were some people at my boss at the time at Ithaca College was a guy named Jeff Long, who played at the Naval Academy. And my brother graduated from the Naval Academy in 1986 and then went into the Marine Corps. So I was looking at a couple different positions, and I remember my brother going, listen, I don't know a lot about lacrosse. I didn't play lacrosse, but you have a chance to work at the Naval Academy. And, you're 4 years out of college. You may not want to coach for the rest of your life, but think about working at a place like the Naval Academy. It's the greatest institution of leadership in the world. Think about what you will get from just being there. And boy, it's great to have wise siblings. And my brother was spot on. I learned so much there, from the mission of the place, what it stood for, and then the people there, and you had everybody that worked there, they were all on the same page, right? It was there, we were there to develop, morally, physically, academically, just getting those young men and women ready for, what they were going to do after graduation. So just an incredible place in so many different ways. But man, the midshipmen, the people there were phenomenal. And, you mentioned the Loonies. Every time I think of the Loonies, I just smile, just because that family is just, as is an amazing, amazing family. They're just so tight and connected. They live with so much passion and so much love in their heart. They're ultra competitive, but they love each other unconditionally, and they're the best. And they're almost, to me, they are like family in so many different ways. So I think going there and just kind of being a young coach and learning so much, but learning there that, at a place like Navy, the kids have so much on their plate. There was a strong sense, and Coach Mead really loved the Naval Academy. And I thought that was his greatest strength. He was a tremendous leader, but his love for the Naval Academy, it was, you could just see it. He wore it on his sleeve, and his passion for that place and his belief was very much in sync with the mission. So, knowing that we didn't get those kids for a lot of time, it was really important to make practice, if you could, the best part of their day. You could still challenge them. They were competitive. They wanted to be pushed, but, adding an element of fun went a long way with those guys, because they were taking 18 credits. They were busy. They had a lot going on. Some days they'd get to you and they were pretty tired. And you had so much respect for the fact that they would put everything aside and they would just, come to practice and push and challenge each other. So there was a lot of, hey, let's include competitive things, which obviously played to the strengths of Brendan, Billy, and Stevie, and a lot of other guys. But you had to make sure you were efficient with their time because they were busy. And then you had to make sure that, you were doing your part, because you knew how much they were doing. You put a lot of healthy pressure on yourself to make sure you did a great job of leading, being consistent, being about the right things, because they were learning about leadership all day long. So if you weren't leading in an effective way, they could definitely be critical of you. So I think connecting with them, just trying to earn their trust, realizing that, hey, I'm here to help you. I'm not here for any other reason except to help you be the very best version of yourself. And respecting them because they took a harder road. I think that was something that I'm not a big yeller per se anyway, and I don't think I was a big yeller back then. I think they learned how to handle, maybe being yelled at and being challenged. So I tried to go the other way, because I felt like they would definitely gravitate towards maybe a less, attacking style per se, if that works. And I think the fact that, hey, I'm going to treat you with respect, I'm going to try to be a little bit more upbeat and positive, and maybe that would be more helpful for them and maybe get more excited about it. And I, at that point, especially being younger, I could be more of an older brother, just being that point in my life, especially when I first got there, and just be someone they could talk to.
Now, did it weigh on you? You think about, you said you only got them for a short time, and when you were coaching there, this was post 9/11. I mean, these guys were graduating and they were going to war. How did that weigh on you? Were you thinking about that? Were you cognizant of that? And I mean, it just had to hit a little bit differently.
Yeah, I can still remember, the morning of 9/11 driving into the Naval Academy, and I got in and I remember parking my car, and then all of a sudden, you start hearing about what's going on. And then, you're at the Naval Academy. So, you're worried, are you under attack? Like, what does that mean for us? And what is happening right now? So you're getting a little nervous. The guys, we tried to be very honest in the recruiting process and just basically, hey, just understand what you're doing here. If you're coming just for lacrosse, you really don't understand what we're doing. I do think you can play a high level lacrosse. I think we can be a very good team and compete amongst the best. But yeah, there's another higher calling after graduation, and realize like you could be in harm's way, and you and your family need to think about that. And I think we didn't try to brush over that, because that is the reality of where you're at. Again, there's a sense of respect for the decision that they make. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't, wasn't something that I didn't worry about. And even where I'm at now, I still worry. That's when you get to know people, like, emotions and passion, it's part of what we do. You build relationships. So I jokingly have always said to kids, you're stuck with me forever. Sorry, but I am a guy that worries, and I want to make sure they're happy. I want to make sure that, we're helping them, because it's really not being a 4-year coach, right? It's a 50-year coach. So that was concerning, but you knew that they were very prepared. It's something that they signed up for and they volunteered for, and it was something they were passionate about. So I think those things helped ease that. But it's a complicated world, and there are some people that don't necessarily agree with our way of life here. And you knew that our guys were going to try to make sure they were going to defend our freedom. They were going to put themselves in harm's way. So you couldn't think about it a lot, but in a quiet moment, it did creep in.
Yeah. Tell us about, if you're comfortable, how you felt and when you learned that Brendan had been killed in Afghanistan. He graduated in 2004, and then in 2012, you learned the news that he'd been killed.
Yeah, that was a tough one. That's the worst phone call you can get. Obviously, with losing a young person, whether it's your kids or the kids that you coach, and you do this long enough, it's going to happen. The odds are it's going to happen. Even as a young coach, my 4th year at Ithaca College, we lost a young man from meningitis, and you never get over it. You just truly never get over it, because the promise, you just see what the potential is with these young people and how they're going to go out in their lives and make such a positive impact. And Brendan was no different. Just a incredible human being. Every guy that we coached at Navy was amazing in so many ways. And Brendan, I think everyone there would tell you that he was just a special guy who wasn't trying to be special. He was just trying to be him. But at his core, his qualities were just so authentic, genuine, and good-natured that, for a guy who wasn't trying to draw attention to himself, was a guy that everybody admired. because of the way he carried himself, what, like what he was all about, the things that he did, and the things that he said. And it was hard to not just respect him, admire him, and just want to be around him. So that was a tough call. You just don't believe it's happening. You get numb, and you just, you could easily go to why. And as you get further in life, that question never gets answered. But I think, it just is a cruel reality of, how fragile life is and how you have to make the most of every day. And then it was, all right, how do we support that family? And obviously everybody that surrounded Brendan, including his wife, what can we do to support them, and just be there to help and just do everything we can, to be there for him.
I think you hit it on the head when you talked about, he was so special and he wasn't trying to be special. He was, no truer words. I mean, he was just the most authentic, kind-hearted individual. Yeah, you really hit it. And so I want to thank you, because this year you walk out onto the field to play in the biggest game in lacrosse that's happening in the world, and you walk out onto that field with that Maryland team and you're wearing a shirt for Brendan, with his motto, be strong, be accountable, never complain. And it's Memorial Day weekend. Many of the people in the stands that day, many of the people watching on ESPN probably weren't thinking about Memorial Day and what Memorial Day meant. They're there to watch the biggest college lacrosse, game in the country. But you intentionally made sure that people were reminded of that, because you had to know, walking out in that shirt, that people were going to say, what's the shirt he's wearing? It says be strong. It's got a foundation on the back. And it was everywhere. It was written up in different articles along with you guys winning. It was the fact that you were wearing this shirt honoring a fallen service member Memorial Day weekend. And I can't thank you enough for making sure that the real meaning of Memorial Day was brought top of mind to everybody watching that game. As a Gold Star sister, I know that Amy felt the exact same way. She was so honored, and just, for us, I always say that I never want to represent the whole community of Gold Star family members, but I can overwhelmingly say that the majority of families, if you ask them, what's one thing you want people to know, or about your loved one, and it's just that they're not forgotten, that their name is said, that people know their story. And you were able to do that in this huge moment for Maryland men's lacrosse. You were able to bring it back to the real meaning of Memorial Day and Brendan Looney's sacrifice. So I thank you for that. I don't know if you realize how much it meant to put on that T-shirt that morning and walk out the door.
Well, I appreciate it. I know, again, I am where I am from all the experiences I had, and I'm not where I'm at right now without the Naval Academy and all of the people that positively impacted me. And I joke about Brendan in that sometimes the teacher teaches the student or the player. Sometimes the player or the student teaches the coach or the teacher. And Brendan, I think, taught us all a lot about how to carry themselves and, how to do their business. So he still, and I think, when you lose somebody like that, and I lost my college coach a couple of months ago, and, people would ask about that, and, carrying their spirit, not letting them be forgotten, doing and saying the things, and living your life in a way that, like they would be proud of. I think that helps you move forward. It helps you honor them. I think in having been where I've been, I'm so blessed and thankful. We have an amazing group of young men in our locker room. I feel like they learn a lot. They get a great education here in the classroom. Yet, I think looking back, I remember a lot more of what my coaches taught me than probably some of my teachers. And that didn't mean I didn't have great teachers. We're just around the guys more. This is a 4-year class. Yet the guys, they go to a class for, basically an eighth of their experience here. So they'll have 16 weeks, which is a good amount of time. And they're usually there 3 times a week for 50 minutes or so.
Yeah.
We're with our guys so much more. So I reflect back to the impact my coaches had on me, and all the things. And I was so blessed to have so many great ones as a player, but also other great coaches that I worked with and for that. I think it's important that again, this is a classroom that we have, and reminding guys, I never tell guys like this is what you should think. That's for them to choose. What we try to help them with is how to look at things and how to think. And then whatever you're passionate about, whatever is, your personal beliefs, that's up to you. And it's not my place to tell guys and kind of go, okay, well, you should think this way. It more like when you see things, okay, well, this is the way to maybe make that decision, or let's keep our minds open to different perspectives, things of that nature. So on Memorial Day, it's become a tradition for us. I always, if we're fortunate enough to get to the Final Four, I'll reach out to Kevin Looney and say, hey, we made it again. Do you have any T-shirts? And he this year made a quick batch of shirts, got them to us. We got them before the day we left. And it's a tradition for us. We get one practice on the Friday before the semifinals. And that's the start of Memorial Day weekend. And all of our kids will get a shirt. And we take a picture at the Final Four with all of our players and our staff. And then I'll post it on social media and our Maryland lacrosse one as well. And to your point, it's the weekend, championship weekend for the sport of lacrosse, but it is Memorial Day weekend, which is bigger than that. And it is something that we can't forget. And, all the guys I knew from the military were always like, don't feel bad for me. I signed up for this. I'm doing what I can do so that you can live your life the way that you want, whether I disagree with what you say or what you do or your opinions, but I'm fighting so that you can have those freedoms and do those things, and other people did as well. So we'll take that picture and send it out. And again, my hope is that anybody that is out there, they just know, like, we do appreciate you. You are not forgotten, whether you're still serving or, the families of those who we've lost. Like, it's important that we let you know we love you, we thank you, and we are grateful. And I think social media, there's a lot of negative, but I think we can use social media in a way that is positive, that is, hopefully reaching people like, hey, this is just all about letting you know we're grateful, we're thankful. And hopefully, and I have a lot of guys that I still stay in touch with. I live in Annapolis, so there are still some of our players that live there. I know they appreciated it. And I'm like, listen, just wearing a T-shirt is nothing. That's easy. But it is a small gesture of gratitude that you're never going to be forgotten.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate it for sure. Okay. Some quick fire questions for you. What or who has been the most influential person in your life as far as learning to be a leader or coach?
Hard to pick one. I obviously what I'm doing right now, I'd say my first boss, Jeff Long, and my second boss, Coach Mead, at the Naval Academy. And then I would say my college coach, in addition to my parents. So I got 5 there, but 5 pretty important ones.
I like it. Okay. What is easier to come back from, a losing season or a winning season?
Losing season. You have that edge.
Yeah.
And I think handling success can be sometimes a lot harder than handling failure. If you have the right guys, they're going to be motivated to get that bad taste out of their mouth. Sometimes when you're successful, it's hard to get that edge back.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel this tremendous pressure now? Or I would say not just you, but the players, like, guys just won. Like, is there this pressure to repeat that? Right. I mean, of course, there's the pressure to repeat that. Of course, they're feeling that, but that's got to be more than the team that lost by 1 goal because they were just hungry, right?
Well, I think what's unique is, especially being a spring sport, is like when you get into playoffs, school's over. So most of the kids at the school are gone. So, right, what we want to always do is, like, we want to be in the moment. I took this from Dabo Swinney, the Clemson football coach. He always talks about a windshield mentality. You're always looking forward. You're not looking backward. Whether you're successful or you're not successful, it's always about what's next. So for our guys, we'll come back in August, yet it's the first time that a lot of people have seen our players since last year.
Yeah.
So a lot of our seniors are gone. It's a brand new team. We're on a brand new journey and we're starting at zero, yet everybody's going to want to tell them, hey, congrats. That's awesome. Hey, you guys are great. You guys are great. It's like, well, that was last year's team. This is about the new challenge, and we have new guys, and a lot of those guys are gone. So it's an interesting dynamic. It's fun. It's what you love about coaching in colleges. Each year is always way different than the year before. It's exciting. You get 25% of your team usually changes over. You're sad to see guys go, but you're excited about this new group coming in. And each journey is so different. There are different challenges. There's bumps in the road. There's different successes. So you get excited that each year is so different, but you're starting at zero again. But people are not really letting you do that because they keep saying, well, you're defending national champions, or, hey, you guys won it. Like, that was that group. And so you always have to, like, try to get your kids back in the middle and counter some of those narratives. And that was one of the challenges this year when we were undefeated. And you try to hide them but you can't. And everybody is saying, well, you're undefeated. Oh my God. And we would constantly go, well, none of that really matters. It's really about what we do this week. Right. And so we did interesting things. Coach Saban talked about with the media rat poison and how he used what the press would say and how great they are. He called it rat poison. That was just a crazy use. So I went to Home Depot, bought 3 bags of rat poison and put it in the locker room and spread it out. And then I sent that video clip to the guys, and just as a reminder. So we had that in the locker room. And then we watched The Man in the Arena with Tom Brady, and the episode about how they went undefeated that year, but then lost to the Giants, and how they got all that way and they were really successful. They just had one bad day.
Yep.
And people don't really look at them as one of the all-time great teams. Well, they were for almost every day of that season except 3 hours. Yeah. And that could happen to us. So I think that's helping, kind of keeping them in the middle is always important. If we lose a game and everybody thinks we're terrible, we bring them back to, no, you guys, listen, we just didn't play well. They played better than us. You're still a really good team. Let's get back to focusing on things that can help us next week and keep moving forward.
Love it. What is one of the most memorable games in all your entire career, whether as a player or as a coach? A memorable game that stands out to you?
You mentioned that Navy Syracuse game, that championship game. I mean, that was an incredible experience. We definitely, and Syracuse always travels well. They have a great history, but boy, oh boy, that seemed like a home game that day. Yeah. That was a team that, what a great group. Stylistically, the way we played, the type of young people we had in that locker room, the personalities, it was an easy team to fall in love with. So being in that moment on that stage, you kind of brought up just that weekend, some interesting things. Graduation was Friday afternoon, and you get an hour practice time on Friday when you play in the Final Four. So that just happened to be in Baltimore. So the guys, all the seniors went to graduation, and then we got a police escort and 2 buses and flew up to Baltimore. We made record time to get up there, to get our practice in. I'm not sure we caught a lot of balls that practice. We were it was pretty awesome being in that stadium, and the guys had a lot going on, but I think that was one. And then another one that always sticks out is my first year here. We had a young man, Ryan Young, on our team, and his mom, reached out to me before the season. It was my first year. She had let me know that she had pancreatic cancer, and she wasn't sure she was going to make it through the year. So we had to kind of navigate and help Ryan, which are his teammates and the staff did an amazing job with. And unfortunately, she passed towards the end of the year. And it was right before the ACC playoffs, and we went down to Duke for the ACC semifinals, and it was a rainy day, so most people have their Gore-Tex on. And I remember going out on the field, and the coaches wore purple shirts, and that represented, we had Maryland Lacrosse purple shirts in honor of pancreatic cancer, which is the color for pancreatic cancer. And I looked in the stands, and all of our parents, they didn't have jackets on, they were getting drenched. And they wanted to show their love for Ryan Young and his brother, who was playing at Duke at the time. And we were playing Carolina, but they just got drenched, and it was more important for them to show their love and support for Ryan and just wear that purple than it was to stay dry. And I was like, man, I am so lucky to be surrounded by these amazing families and great people. And again, so much of, what we're teaching and what we're doing here has nothing to do with lacrosse, right? And so this journey of life with this adversity, what a great support system for Ryan, and what a great, thing for him to feel that support to help him through a tough time.
I got the chills when you were sharing that story. Amazing. What is the most important book you've ever read?
Boy, oh boy.
Or one of them.
It's hard to pick one. John Gordon's a good friend of mine. We played college lacrosse together. He has a book called The Hard Hat, which is one that we've used with our players. It's about a boy named George Boyardi, who's from the Maryland area, who passed away, played at Cornell. And George was an amazing young man. And a lot of the book is about George, his story, but also what it means to be a great teammate. I think that is one that is impactful because for so many reasons, whether it's the sport of lacrosse or connection with George, but also, things that make you a great teammate. It's not necessarily about what makes you a better player per se. It will help, but it's all about being a good teammate, and all those things carry over. We are big on books here. Legacy is one that we have our kids read. There's a book called The Four Agreements, I think is fantastic. That is really simple, but it's a big Tom Brady book, but it's something that our guys have utilized. So I could probably go on, but those would be a few that come to mind.
Yeah. Big fan of Legacy and The Four Agreements. So like both of those choices for the players. And then finally, what does living a resilient life look like for you?
Again, kind of what's next, windshield mentality. People have brought up the last 2 championships, but the resiliency piece resonates so strongly in both those championship runs. And it started the year before. In 2016, we lose a heartbreaker in overtime against the University of North Carolina. And we have a young man named Connor Kelly who took a shot in overtime, and it could have won the game. Great player for us. A save is made. If I had any guy to take that shot, I'd want Connor to take it again. We don't score. Carolina ends up winning the game. Heartbroken. Connor, is a guy that, again, there's a million plays in that game. Yet, right, it's one of the later games, so he's beating himself up. His teammates were there to support him. None of us looked at that play being the defining play. yet that's a long summer for him because I think he, in his heart, he's such a team first guy. He was like, I let our team down, which we don't get there without him. Sometimes you can have a great shot and the goalie makes a good save. And sometimes it just doesn't work out. No one hits 100% of their shots. And we lose that game, yet we come back the next year and we're motivated and driven, and we end up winning the championship. We have a tough year. We have some guys get injured along the way. We lose a few games along the way, yet the guys are resilient and we win it. And last year, we get close in that game against Virginia. Our face-off man, Luke Weirman, has a chance. There's not much time left. There's a face-off. He comes down. Hardly any time left on the clock. Luke shoots it. The goalie makes the save. And that highlight is what we saw over and over again after that game all last year. That's all anybody talked about. And Luke was a sophomore. He, during COVID, his freshman year, didn't take any face-offs. He's a Westchester Henderson guy, so he's a Philly guy.
Yeah.
Was a guy that was a really good athlete who we thought could be a good player. And no face-offs as a freshman. Last year as a sophomore, he does a tremendous job of getting us to the championship. But that's what people remember. Luke takes the summer, comes back. He goes from 45% to a 66%, which was incredible, and becomes a first-team All-American, and ends up leading us to the championship. And you could argue that he was our most valuable player in a lot of ways, but a guy that had to live with that memory. And every time he got on social media, that's what you saw was him missing that shot. It didn't define him. He just kept working, and his growth and his improvement, it is storybook. And just like Connor came back in 17, was a first-team All-American and led us to a championship year, that adversity and just kind of getting up the next day, putting one foot in another, in front of the other, and just continuing to just keep working and being resilient. That's what you love about athletics. Not every story will end that way, but it won't end that way if you don't have belief, if you can't move on, you don't get that support, and you can't get that one first step to take the next step, to make the next step. So those are all things you hope that the kids learn along the way. A lot of the stories won't be as storybook as those, but there are so many little victories along the way, whether it's overcoming an injury, getting through that tough class. During the year, did you lose somebody close to you and your guy supporting you, but just continuing to move forward. So that next play mentality in a game becomes the next play mentality in life, and realizing that it's going to be good and bad every day. And there's probably multiple good and bad every day, but you got to keep moving forward. And it may be hard for you, but there's always somebody that's gone through worse than you. And I still wear my Brendan bracelet. I've worn it, I've broken it, I've had to super glue it. But it's a helpful reminder to me every day, listen, we have this opportunity. I still think, what would Brendan think or say or do? So he's still teaching me, but that helps me motivated to help these guys be the best version of themselves. And a lot of times it's being like Brendan.
I love it. Be like Brendan. I think a lot of people could learn a lot of things from the way he lived his life. And I love the windshield mentality. Just, keep looking forward, right? I mean, that's all we can do. We just got to keep looking forward. So Coach Tillman, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. And I know that my fellow lacrosse fans and fanatics are going to really enjoy this episode and how you break it down. I really appreciate it. Best of luck next year. And thanks for all you do to, again, continue bringing light to the men and women who serve. Thanks so much for joining us on The Resilient Life.
No, thanks for having me. And I'm wearing my Travis shirt in honor of that today. And, every year we go to Wreaths Across America. And I know I sent you a note last year and was there with some guys that go every year. Some of our players go. I think it is one of the just truly like bucket list activities is Wreaths Across America, because it is such a selfless, true, like American grateful expression, like of, hey, it's the holidays, we're all busy. but we're going to get up early and make sure those people know that we haven't forgotten them, and was able to leave one for Travis, and wanted you to just know that, like, he's not forgotten. And he obviously, if he's keeping company with Brendan, obviously great young man. And I wish I got more time with him. But I know he was obviously a great wrestler, but an even better midshipman and leader and brother, son, in so many ways. So, again, blessed to have his impact as well. And thanks for all that you do, because a lot of us appreciate what you do. And I know you got a lot going on, but thank you for that.
Thanks so much. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Resilient Life podcast. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends.